What I do with my art is I sit and I actually think about what was actually taught to me by my parents and my uncles and try to visualize it. Then I sort of talk to my ancestral spirit. I talk to them, then I sleep on it. Most of my artwork actually, it comes to me in a dream. I'm just a vessel, really, recording the culture so that our children can know the truth about their existence and their identity.
Kluge-Ruhe Aboriginal Art Collection is the only museum in the United States dedicated to Australian Aboriginal art. We have a collection of over 1,800 objects. What we really are trying to do is to present Aboriginal art to the world, to share it. We're part of the university, so our mission is really education. We're here to educate Americans and people from around the world about an art that they may never see if they don't get to go to Australia. Most recently, we've been doing that through a series of artist residencies. And that is something that is pretty unique here in the United States and brings artists face to face with students here in a situation where they're learning from one another. They're giving students an absolutely unique experience.
Side of it, stick it under there and just bang, bang.
David Bosun is the first resident artist on a program that's been funded by Australia Council. We asked the artists who were applying for the residency to specify a project that included new work and also other ways that they might work within the university. So David suggested a sculpture project. We are working with a professor at U.Va, Bill Bennett. He has 2 sculpture classes, an introductory and a more advanced sculpture class, and David's working with both classes.
So what we're actually going to do is when we cut with this...
We're really looking to David to be a cultural translator, to be a teacher, someone who's going to teach students something that they would not have encountered before.
My personal interest is more about education and educating the future generation of my people and also the world about our lifestyle, our history, and our identity.
Well, the Torres Strait Islands are between North Queensland and Papua New Guinea. It's a narrow strait with hundreds of islands scattered between the 2 larger bodies of land. But only 17 of the islands are inhabited today. And David lives on an island called Moa.
Our culture goes back and our identity goes back 70,000 years. So it actually was handed down through family born, through storytelling, dancings, ceremonies, and songs, right down through generation to generation. Until 100 years ago, when my great-grandfather, that was the first time that it was actually recorded in script, in books, photographs. So now what I'm actually doing now is taking the next step, is recording it in a visual form. I drew it so that we'll use this as a stencil, cut it out, put it around the pole and trace it out. Then we'll cut it with a chainsaw and start chisel it into shapes. The patterns are traditional patterns that we use in our culture, mask and ceremonial mask, artifacts, canoes, and it was also engraved onto rock art. So I'm using those patterns as a guide so that after we carve that shark, when it's all sanded, then I'll carve in all the patterns with wood carving tool. When I'm around my nephews, nieces, or even in a family gathering, I like to teach what I know, share what I know, the knowledge I have. Stepping out of that comfort zone in my community, traditional teaching into the mainstream, it's a whole different world. And it's very exciting to me as well. Yeah, there.
But you're going this way.
You're coming backwards.
Oh, well.
This is going to break off.
Come back there. Not too deep because you see the line is there.
Yeah.
You don't want to actually go right under there, so you sort of work your way from the top and going down.
Okay.
As an artist, I feel my role is to reawaken the ancient culture and also to preserve it for the future generation. That is by creating the work that I have and teaching it to the next generation. And not only verbally, but practically doing it too as well, so that they can see that this is how you do it, this is how our life is practiced, and this is the way we live. Bash it. Bash it.
Get my anchor out.
Yeah. You probably need to cut in the same as we did here.
Oh, okay, getting deep
Just
like
there,
that.
like that.
All of that down.
Yeah, down it.
Nice.
Nice and steady, nice and steady. Steady. Like really slow. I have that personal connection directly to the ancestral being because I acknowledge them. And when you actually acknowledge them and when you talk to them, you will actually see things happening. With the ancestral beings, they're present, you can feel they're present. Because they possess supernatural power. And that's what brings their artwork to life. It's their presence. It's going to be good. In our world, we are universally connected in Torres Strait Islander culture. We are connected to the land, to the sea, and to the sky. So, as you can see, the fish, dugong, and the turtle are the connections on the sea. The birds, the constellation are of the sky. The garden, fruit, and the human being are of the land. So there's a universal connection, physically, mentally, and spiritually. This piece, it's actually my most recent one, and this piece called is Baidamau Titoi Bunan Urdai Idi. The technique of the color is called Kaidaral. When I was with my dad, we were in a boat. He was telling me where to put the anchor. But then I said, where am I going to put it? And he said, there where the Kaidaral is, where the ripple of the water. When I looked at it, I saw the ripple. So although the ripple went past me, but I knew where it was. Then I asked him, what's Kaidaral mean? Dad told me that. Kaidaral means that as the spirit of the wind is flowing on top of the surface of the water and creates the ripple. The first memory I can recall dancing was when I was 9, and I was dancing next to my dad. When we have celebrations, we dance certain dance that tells the story. The dance itself is choreographed by my dad. It's about Tagai. Tagai is a constellation that sits within the southern hemisphere. So I'm sort of a storyteller. When you dance, it's not actually you dancing, it's them dancing and them telling the story. You only become the vessel or the mechanism or the tool that they use. It's me as a physical body doing it, but the spiritual being and the energy and the power and the passion in it, it's them because they sort of manifest themselves through you. The mineral is actually those patterns. It's part of our culture, our design. So it was used on engravings of artifacts, carvings, doing ceremonies as well. With my art, I focus on not only the image, the pattern itself. I want the audience to look at, if they look at my art, they look at the image, they're actually drawn to the image. It's taking them on a visual tour around the image. So when they look at a particular pattern, it actually takes them around again. The pattern is actually, it's different from the artwork itself. Someone can come into a room, then look at that artwork, and then it's drawn into, the image draws them. Then when they come up close to the artwork, then they go into the patterns. And draws them, and some of my drawings, the patterns are actually hidden in there.
I mean, I've never worked on a piece for so long with so many people, and to know that David does this by himself sometimes must take him forever just for one piece, which is very impressive, especially because he takes in all of our ideas and puts it on his own work.
Working with David, it's been a very inspiring experience, I think. As a mentor, he's very good at instilling confidence in you. So like, even though this is the first time a lot of us have done any sort of woodwork or power tools, you kind of go into it feeling like you know what you're doing or that you can't really make a mistake.
It's not every day that you get a chance to work with an international artist. It's opened my eyes to a lot of different techniques that they use.
It's very cool to be kind of working with him for this past month, and it's exciting to see what it will end up being or looking like, and also what people are gonna say about it.
So now we're ready, the moment of truth.
We engraved initials, patterns into the poles. As long as these poles stand, hoping that in the next 100 years your great-great-grandchildren can come and say that my great-great-grandfather actually carved the pole.
One of the things that we're really excited about in the residency is that we are bringing in artists who work in different media, artists from very different cultures. They are working with students and exposing them sometimes to styles of art that they've never done before. It's also a professional development opportunity for artists because they get to travel internationally to present their work to a different audience. an audience that sees it in a very different light from the way it's seen in Australia.
Our society structure is based around the cosmology and spirituality. So we have a spiritual connection to our constellations because they've created our world, they've given us the law, and they've actually gave us protection in return for ritual acknowledgement. So we're sort of the custodians of the certain constellations because of the belief and the spiritual, sacred spiritual ceremonies that connects you to particular constellations. And that knowledge and that particular right is passed down through the generations. It's not like I'm reading it from a book and putting it in my artwork. I can actually physically talk about that astronomy, the constellation, and I can show you in the stars because my dad has showed me.